Vinyl community, how's it going? James here. Honored to be part of the Blue Note 4000 series. That's what I'm going to get into today. Going to talk about 4093, and that is Ike Quebec, Heavy Soul. But before I get into the album and the music, I want to thank the three wise men, Dave, Local Bandography, Rob, Sound Strange, and Sherv at Julius Jabbar for graciously inviting me to take part in the series. One of the many things I love about this series that you started is, and I think Lavelle pointed this out, and I echo what he said, is that the series is reminding me to pull out albums and listen to them, things that I haven't listened to for many years, a lot of them 10 plus years. So I'm re-familiarizing myself with records, I'm getting reacquainted, I'm rediscovering things that I forgot about, that I enjoyed. So it's been great on many levels. So that leads me to Ike Quebec, Heavy Soul. This is one that I hadn't listened to for 10 years. And I'll get into how I really feel about this, but let's just give you some background on Ike Quebec for those not familiar or who haven't read about him for a while. He started making a name for himself in the 40s. He played with Coleman Hawkins, Kenny Clark, Benny Carter, had a stint with Cab Calloway, and a host of other legends from that time. And during the 40s, he did some 78s with Blue Note, so that's how he first got associated with the label. The 50s were a tough time for him, though. He unfortunately fell into some bad habits, like a lot of musicians during the 40s and 50s, and even in the 60s, especially the jazz cats. So he really didn't do much, if anything at all, during the 50s. But since he had a prior relationship with Alfred Lion, he had done some 78s in the late 40s for Blue Note. And I don't know exactly how it worked out, but he ended up working with Blue Note as an arranger and a talent scout. And apparently he was a talent scout. He brought in Thelonious Monk to Blue Note, and also Bud Powell. So that's where the relationship was. From what I understand, Alfred Lion wanted to give him a deal, but he was a little leery of his habit. He felt like Ike wasn't ready to do a record until this one, Heavy Soul. This is recorded November 26, 1961. The lineup is, we have Freddie Roach on organ, Milt Hinton on bass, and Al Harewood on drums. And I think it was Ricarda who pointed out that he's an extremely underrated drummer. He has just a beautiful touch on anything he does, especially, well, this album, the Grant Green records. This has 8 tracks. 2 Ike Quebec originals, Acquitted and Q's Dilemma. They're both on side 1, and I'm not necessarily going to go through each song. His self-penned tracks are 2 kind of up-tempo, sort of swinging, kind of 40s tracks, and a lot of ballads here. Just One More Chance, Brother Can You Spare a Dime, The Man I Love, I Want a Little Girl, and Nature Boy. So now I want to just get honest about how I really feel about this record. So many of the records in this series that I broke out that I hadn't listened to for a long time, I thought, wow, I haven't listened to it for a long time, and this is amazing. You know, the Dexter Gordon, the Jackie McLeans, the Grant Greens, all, you know, pretty much everything that's been shown and that I have, I got reacquainted with. I go, wow, this is an amazing record. But Heavy Soul, I don't know if it's because it's a number of things. And again, this is my own, personal subjective slant on it. This record, to me, if I didn't know any better, I would think it was a prestige record. It doesn't have that classic Blue Note sound, and not like everything has to have the classic Blue Note sound, but this certainly doesn't have it. The recording, it's Rudy Van Gelder, so you have top-notch guys behind the booth, but the recording it sounds like a prestige record. Ike's tone, which is beautiful, especially on the ballads, but it was recorded, he sounds a little far away from the mic. It has that distant kind of sound that you can hear on some prestige records. And Freddie Roach, I think this is the only album I have. I know Freddie Roach is on a bunch of records. Freddie Roach has that organ style, and the only way I know how to describe it, so for those of you out there of a certain age who are American, I would describe it as the baseball park sound organ. If you went to baseball games in the, depending how old you are, the 60s, the 70s, even in the 80s, there were, organ player was, part of the entertainment. And it has that, so Freddie Roach has that baseball park, old-timey organ sound, at least on this album. I don't know how he sounds on other records. So to me, it sounds very dated. He has that like pre-Jimmy Smith, pre-Larry Young sound, before they really innovated and took the style and the sound of the organ, the Hammond B3 to a new level. So that's part of it. So it's really the organ playing of Freddie Roach, and then the recording. It's really not a great recording. There's something about it. I don't know if it's my pressing. I have a 1995 recording, a Capitol. I don't think this was a Rare Groove series, but it was when all those Rare Grooves were coming out. So it sounds very dated and honestly boring to me. And I think part of it is just the context of where I'm at in my musical journey. Just whether it's coincidence or not, this week I've been pulling out a lot of OJC, Prestige, Riverside records that I don't even care about anymore. This is very basic to me and boring, and it's not like I'm sophisticated or anything like that in many ways. But I've just outgrown that stuff. It's just not interesting to me anymore. A lot of like what I call basic jazz, like some Cannonball Adderley records and some Willis Jackson, even some Coleman Hawkins things. Just it's not interesting to me anymore. So this one, it just doesn't do anything for me. I'll keep it, because it's a beautiful record. It's a Blue Note. Can't get rid of it. But it just doesn't really do anything for me, and I don't know if I'll ever put it on again, to be honest with you. Now, that said, I do want to point out that Ike Quebec's playing on the ballads is beautiful, for sure. He has that breathy Coleman Hawkins, Gene Ammons, Ben Webster style and old tradition of all those classic guys. The highlight for me is the version of Nature Boy. Last song, side 2. This is the best song, and it's a great song. It's not just in context of the album. It's actually really good. It's just a duet of Ike Quebec and Milt Hinton on bass. Really, really beautiful, spare, thoughtful rendition of that song. But otherwise, it doesn't do much for me overall. And I think going back to the recording, it certainly can't be Rudy Van Gelder. I think part of it could be I just didn't have the right band to bring it out in him, because this was recorded in November 26, 1961. And just a month later, December 16th and December 23rd, 1961, he did this record, Blue and Sentimental. Beautiful, beautiful album cover. And this has Grant Green, Paul Chambers, and Philly Joe Jones. So you compare this lineup with that lineup, not taking anything away from those guys, but just the combination. I think Grant Green, Paul Chambers, Philly Joe Jones brought something out, because this is standout stuff. It's kind of like an athlete maybe, where they're only as good as their team, and Ike really brings it on this one, on Blue and Sentimental. I think he did a total of 4 official releases on Blue Note. The Heavy Soul, the Blue and Sentimental, it might as well be Spring, which I don't have, and then I have this on the CD, the Soul Samba, which this is an amazing record. Album music, if you have it. This has Kenny Burrell and Willie Bobo, Wendell Marshall on bass, and Garvin Massot on some percussion. This is really, really great album. I know there's an audiophile release out there that's probably too expensive for me to buy. I like this album, but not enough to spend $55 or $60 on it. And I think there was maybe two other of Ike Quebec's albums on Blue Note with the white borders that weren't released at the time. So I don't think there's anything on Heavy Soul. It wasn't really so much that Ike Quebec provided a bad performance. It's just I don't think he had the players around him to really bring out the best in his music. And maybe it was because it was his comeback or his first album as a leader, and he was just clean, and maybe he wasn't as inspired as he maybe was on other albums. So I don't want to completely detract from his greatness, because he's a great player, no doubt about it. So that's Heavy Soul. I think now, along with Rob's review of the Jackie McLean record that he didn't like that much, I think these are maybe the 2 thumbs down so far in this series. But hey, you can't win them all, and we all want to be honest about the music that we talk about and that we listen to. So that's it for now. Again, thanks for listening, and it was great to be part of this project. I think I might be able to get in on a few other of these if the 3 Wise Men grant me again. So it was really fun to do, and I listened to this album a bunch of times to really think about how I've come back to this record after so many years. But yeah, that's it. Thanks for listening, and look forward to seeing more. All right, take care.